Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Brooke. Thank you for joining. If you are new here, this is a channel where I talk about houseplants and do different DIYs on my shorts, which today I am doing a DIY here on my long video or whatever you want to call these. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to my channel so you can see more videos from me. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. So today I said again, this is a DIY that I'm going to do. I recently went to Florida and I saw a ton of Staghorn ferns mounted in people's trees and just at different plant shops. And it was inspiring because I have had a Staghorn fern. Well, I've had a Staghorn fern in prior years as well, but I currently have a Staghorn fern and I purchased it because I wanted to mount it. It was actually a really great price. You can find pretty pricey Staghorn ferns. Honestly, they're kind of, I don't know, maybe expensive sometimes, depending on where you're purchasing them from. But I found this guy for a really good price. It's really large. It's been pretty large since when I purchased it, but I bought it because it was, again, a good deal for a really large Staghorn fern. Usually a smaller Staghorn fern is $10. And I think this was $12 for it. I picked it up because I actually really love Staghorn ferns. I had one in our previous home. I did not bring it with us. It was mounted on a plaque and I had it hanging in a few different spots at sometimes in our home. Maybe I'll show photos of it, but really easy to care for plant, very beautiful and architectural, decorative, whatever you want to call it. They do look like antlers and I thought that was fun. That's why they're called Staghorn ferns. But I saw, again, in Florida, a ton of Staghorn ferns. I found a gigantic one at a nursery near where we were staying, and it was so beautiful. It had overtaken like the entire planter or whatever they had it in. And I saw one even larger hanging in someone's tree. Like, I don't know if anyone has saw Magnolia. Yeah, Magnolia. They had a gigantic Staghorn fern in one of their previous season looks, and it was that large or larger hanging in this person's tree. And it was so beautiful, and they're just so cool. And so I really want to do something with it. We cannot mount, or I can't put anything on our current walls because we are renting. And so this is a renter-free. This is a renter-friendly DIY of a Staghorn fern because I'm going to hang it. I'm not going to mount it on anything. I want to like create a little Staghorn fern hanging ball, basically. Let's talk about the Staghorn ferns because they are really cool. They're not a fern like a button nose fern or button fern, maidenhair fern, whatever. They are epiphytic, and so that means they grow on things. That's why if you do go down to Florida, anywhere like tropical vibes, you can find them, I'm sure. They are very easy to care for because they just grow on things. So they don't need the water like a fern does. So if you own a fern, like again, a maidenhair fern, which they are known for dying, basically. But they all need extreme water. They all like water and they like high humidity. And if you don't have those two things, they immediately die. But the Staghorn fern, at least this kind, I wish I knew what type it was because it just says Staghorn fern Platycerium species, which I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but Platycerium is their overall genus. And then there's clearly different styles or types of Staghorn ferns. So I don't know what type this one is. A really cool one is an elephant ear Staghorn fern, and they're just like elephant ears. They're gigantic, like fronds, and they're very beautiful, but they are easy to care for. They do not like being drowned in water because, again, they are epiphytic. And so that means they grow on things. So they grow on trees and different plants that can sustain them. I think it's basically just trees. But they're very easy to care for. I let mine dry completely out before I water it because, again, they're growing on something. So they're not in the soil, in the ground, like continuously soaking up water. They're on the trees doing that. I mean, in my mind, if they get a good soaking, it's because of the rain. And so that is like a full on like watering, but otherwise they are just growing on the sides of trees, sucking up the water, taking the moisture out of the air, all of that good stuff. So that is why these can actually be grown without soil. So if they're on trees, they technically don't have soil like on them. And so you do find them, they are in soil, so they will grow, like obviously, but they don't need it. And so I had mine in my previous home mounted on wood, a wood plank. I got cedar planks and mounted it, and I just put a little bit of sphagnum moss behind it, and I would fully soak all of it about once a month, and it did really well. It grew really well. It sat in an east-facing window, I want to say, so it doesn't need like the highest light. Again, these are on trees, so they are shaded beneath the canopy of that. But I just want to do something with this guy because he sits currently right here under my constellation in a southwest facing window, but it doesn't get extremely high light or anything. I want to move this outside. So I want to put this on a garden hanger. And I have one currently. My string of dolphins was on it. And if you saw my videos or previously, you know that it died. So I have space. I want to create a little hanging staghorn fern. And so that's what we're gonna do. Hopefully this wasn't a long intro. Let's just start. So again, you're gonna need a staghorn fern of whatever type you want. And then I said previously, if you want to mount it on wood, you can use cedar. I use cedar because cedar is a really like hefty wood. It's long lasting. It doesn't rot as easily. And so you want to make sure that you have a nice wood like that. If you just want to mount it on the wood, you can use whatever planks you want. And then I would suggest using like a metal piece and then adhering the staghorn fern to that metal piece with sphagnum moss or soil. And that way it can be taken on and off the wood plank to be watered, because when it was on cedar, I submerged the entire thing. I submerged the cedar and it did just fine. But if you're using like a pine wood or a cheaper wood, I think that it's going to rot out a lot faster. And so just know when you are doing this, if you're doing it that way, I would use a good wood. If you're going to mount it, it's basically the same process. You're just mounting it on a wood. I just used my staghorn fern, again, a little bit of sphagnum moss, which I have that right here, and fishing wire, and then your wood. And what I did was I also think I used sheet moss, which I have here as well. I put the sphagnum moss on first, then I put the staghorn on, and then I used the sheet moss and wrapped it all around both of those pieces, and then used fishing line and I attached it all around the wood. And so again, mine were planks. I'll show a photo of it. I think I have a tutorial somewhere of it that maybe I can link. I just wrapped the fishing wire all around it, and that's how it adhered. Now again, eventually, if you give it the right conditions, the staghorn fern can overtake that wood and grow around it. And so that's what you see in the wild. Like it grows around the trees and onto things and like really does overtake whatever it's growing on. Today though, I am going to be trying something different. Again, I'm creating like a staghorn ball, hanging ball, but I am still going to use sphagnum moss, my fishing wire, and maybe some sheet moss. I don't really know if I'm going to need it. And then I have this hardwire mesh. So I use this mesh for my moss poles, and I just got it because I don't know. Honestly, I feel like I could just create this, like take it out of the soil and then put some sphagnum moss all around it or sheet moss and you know, ball it up like a kokedama basically, which is probably a better thought process on this, but I don't know. I really don't want it to be like anything to be seen, if that makes sense. I really want this to feel like it's just hanging there in nothing basically. So I don't know what I'm going to do or if I'm even going to use this. So we will just start and find out. Here is my staghorn fern. Again, we are going to just take all the soil off of it. They're really interesting plants. Again, this mix looks very mossy, so it already has some sphagnum moss in it. I can see it, and just straight soil and a little bit of perlite. And so I'm just going to take that soil all the way off, and I should have brought a different bucket because this is going to get everywhere. I'm going to make sure not to hurt the sheaths, or I can't remember the technical term of what these are. Like these are a separate like leaf, and that's what it grows onto the tree and like uses to adhere. And then these are what catches like the nutrients and the rain and all that good stuff. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I had not really Googled this, but I can only assume that that's what's happening here. Yes, I'm going to go out to the trash can actually. So pause and dump this soil, clean as much of it off as possible. I got as much soil off as I could. So that soil mix was terrible. It was sphagnum moss. Again, I said like sphagnum moss, probably peat moss, and just like a very tight mixture. And so I am left with this. I think it's the roots. I mean, like I can clearly see, and I don't want to mess with them too much. So I'm just going to leave that on there and use that as the base to wrap what I need. So honestly, again, I feel like I could do this as a kokedama, which is you can use soil, which you can use sphagnum moss, and just wrap it around and then wrap sheet moss around that and really like tie it together and hold it. And so maybe that's what I'm going to do. So maybe this has turned into a kokedama tutorial, which I have done before, and I love making kokedama. They're just really fun. But I think I'm going to do that because, again, I don't know how I would do this. I think I wanted this because if it grew, I wanted it to have like a stable something holding it, and so that it could grow around. But I think I'm just going to leave it to be all natural and not put any hard wire mesh on it. I have seen people use like baskets from I believe Dollar Tree, like so the hanging baskets that are just like $1.25. Seen people place these on the outside of that and create this like really beautiful Staghorn basket. So if you have a lot of Staghorn that you are purchasing or want to purchase and want to create like a more full ball, you could totally do that. Again, they're like already hanging and they have the hard wire, well, it's wire and metal around them, so you could just attach them there and it would be a really easy basket to create. But we're just going to create a kokedama, which is again basically the same thing. Both of these sphagnum mosses and fishing wire. Making a kokedama, you can again use soil and sphagnum moss. And so what I would do when I create that is I mix like equal parts soil and sphagnum moss, soak it all, and create a ball and really wring out the water. And so like it gets really tight and compact. And then I cut the ball that I created in half and put the plant in it, like, and then squish it all back together. And then once I have that ball created, I use sheet moss to really hold it all in. The soil's already on there, so I'm just going to use sphagnum moss. I have my sphagnum moss. It is soaking. Again, I'm going to put this outside. It's going to be in the elements. So we live in Texas. It's going to be hot, humid, and it will like that, I think. And so I'll just watch it to see what it does because I don't want it to burn. That's my only problem. The spot that I'm putting it in, it does not have any shade or covering. Again, these grow on trees, so they are shaded. And so I don't know how that will react. So I've not done that before, not given it a full light or anything like that, or direct light like that. I will water the soil once it's completely dry. If it rains, like that will be its watering. Now, I will bring this back in the winter time, and they are susceptible to pests just like any other plant. So when you bring them back inside, I would make sure to spray them down, use insecticidal soap, or you can use, I'm trying to think of it, like systematic granules, whatever you would prefer, just to make sure that it doesn't have any pests when you're bringing it back into your home situation. And so I would also isolate it for a little bit just to make sure that there are no pests on it before putting it back into its normal spot. So I will make sure to do that when I am bringing it back in at the end of summer, or really, who knows, next year when it's like February and snowing. I don't know. Summer, or the season here is different than what I'm used to, so it's a longer summer and plants can stay out longer. This is just sheet moss from Hobby Lobby. Had it for other random things, who knows what. And I have my sphagnum moss, which is from Lowe's or something, I think, or maybe maybe Hobby Lobby again, I'm not sure. And then fishing wire. This is a very easy project. Just going to be using some sphagnum moss to give a little bit of more moisture retention, because again, this isn't growing on the side of things, so I need to give it something to soak in the water and keep it in with. But that's a really long piece. I just take it and I just covering the soil. This is a very messy process, by the way. Bringing this out, as you can see, I have placed a large sphagnum moss ball onto the soil. So now I'm going to take my sheet moss and start wrapping it, and hopefully I have enough. I do, yeah. So I just take it like this, I just put it on the ball, and then I will take the other side. Can't really see what I'm doing. And then I'll start wrapping it with my fishing wire. And oh man, and half of it will fall out. I'm going to take my fishing wire and I'm just going to start wrapping it. I'm going to try not to wrap. You don't want to wrap like around the plant. And so I wrap it, you know, around the soil ball only. Now we have it all. Here it is. It's all together. It's a very obnoxious process to get it all to stay. So working with the fishing wire is not my favorite, but it is all together and adhered. I did have to go over the large frond right here to actually like keep it together because I didn't think about that when you're mounting it to a board. You know, it's all, you're mounting it to the actual wood, and so that keeps it nice and snug. But here I don't have that. So and usually if I'm making kokedama, like I've made one for my rattlesnake, my Hartley philodendron, a pothos, I go through it and it's okay because that plant grows, you know, in different ways. But this guy is going to be fine. This is how it looks, like this. It's all nice and tight. And so now I need to create an actual like place for it to hang. And so I was thinking like just creating not a macrame, but maybe a macrame. But I don't really want to do that because I don't want it to be seen. Again, I kind of just want it to be like it's floating there. So I don't know if I can do fishing wire. Like I have this piece here that is stuck up. And so maybe I'm just going to hang it like that, but then it's going to hang like that. I think I'm going to use fishing wire and just wrap it again a little bit and create like a hook. This is better. So what I did is just created like a little loop. I don't know. I just tied it around and then kept a section of it a little bit loose. So there is that loop. It's going to be great. It'll just hang from my hanger, and that really is it. So you could use a macrame hanger and place it in it. Like you could put it like that and just hang it from the top. You could again mount this on something and use it as wall decor. But again, I'm going to hang this outside. It's going to hang like this. Well, it's going to hang like this a little bit. So it's a little bit more straight than it was, but I will keep you updated on how it does outside, and let me know if you're going to make one too, or if you have one and your care tips for it. Otherwise, thanks for joining, and we will see you next time.